Hello and welcome to Chicago Reacts. My name is Lauren and today I am going to be looking at a video by DMuted. And this one is, could Batman solve Five Nights at Freddy's? Now, my Five Nights at Freddy's content that I've done on this channel, my Batman content that I've done on this channel, hasn't been much. None of them have done particularly well. Actually, that's a lie. I feel like the posture videos did okay. Either way, I want to know if he could solve Five Nights at Freddy's. I feel like probably. I think he could do it. I've got full faith in Batman could solve Five Nights at Freddy's because normal idiots on the internet have been able to basically solve Five Nights at Freddy's. So I am curious to see how long it would take him. I'm curious to see what he would think about it. And it kind of depends on which Batman I think that they're bringing in. Like, from which universe. Because Five Nights at Freddy's has legitimate ghosts and like really weird like supernatural science that gets used in it. So it's like using of the agony that is like that helps to, you know, animate the animatronics and the remnant and all of that. Like using those things. I think he would get to the bottom of William Afton being the killer, but I don't think that he would necessarily figure out that things were haunted. Like, I don't think that would be, like, again, it depends on which Batman we're talking about. Because if we're talking about a Batman from, like, Justice League Unlimited or something, wherein he has dealt with spirits and ghosts, or if we're dealing with like a Batman who knows John Constantine, then maybe he'd have a chance, you know? Because like, but if not, if we're dealing with like the Nolan Batman, I don't know. I'm trying to remember if in the Batman the Animated Series or in the Batman Beyond, I'm trying to remember if that's the Batman from Justice League Unlimited, or if it's not. I think they're two separate universes. Because, like, I don't think Animated Series had too much ghosts, like real magic in it. It did, though, because, like, no, it did, right? Because Hippolyta is, like, because he meets Wonder Woman in there. Cersei, I think, has a role. No, I can't remember if that's Justice League Unlimited or Batman the Animated Series. Anyway, doesn't matter, really. I guess we'll find out what these people are going to say their criteria is. And let's find out. Let's find out.
Comic books and video games, the two pinnacles of nerd culture. One nerd is sitting there consciously aware of the oil his fingers are producing at all times, while the other is blissfully unaware of the effects of Cheeto dust on analog control sticks. Despite this, I think they can agree on one thing. Batman fucking rocks. The Dark Knight, the world's greatest detective, whatever you want to call him, has one of the single longest careers in superhero history. And over those many, many years, he's faced villains like Joker, Mr. Freeze, and the Riddler. But today, I'm asking about a villain that he's never faced, one that frankly I'm not certain he could. William Afton. Yes, sir, today I'm asking the question literally no one has ever bothered to ask, but my god is it fun. Could Batman solve Five Nights at Freddy's? It's a question that's way more complex than it would seem at first, and led me down rabbit holes and into vat caves. So
okay, because I'm also thinking about some other stuff too, like, I mean, let's just look at Poison Ivy for a little bit. But anyway, my thought is, because, like, depending on the Batman we have, he could have Ra's or Ra's al Ghul, depending on how you pronounce it. I've heard it both ways. I'm not sure what the correct way is, based on etymology and creators and all of that. But anyway, because the Al Ghuls have access to the Lazarus pits, which can bring people back from the brink of death, or just flat out kill you if you're healthy. But Ra's al Ghul is centuries old, right? Not in the Nolan verse, though. I don't think he is centuries old in the Nolan verse. So because I'm like thinking, because William Afton ends up like trapped in the rabbit suit, like just twitching and shit for years and years and years. And like, how much of this? So how much supernatural bullshit is Batman aware of? Like, that's not just science bullshit, because there's actual supernatural stuff that happens in the FNAF universe. Also, how far into the FNAF universe are we going? Are we just doing like the 6 games, or are we going into the security breach era, like the Mimic and all of that? Like, where are we going? What are we doing?
Let's get started already. And before you get
I should
too
probably
much
let
further in, I
him
should mention that this
tell
video is
me.
100% just for the fun of it. I'm not going to get super duper analytical, so if there's
Oh.
something I miss or something you disagree with, please don't take this video as the be-all end-all. It's just for fun. So first off, we need to talk about what Batman is even solving here. Because being frank,
The
if the
missing
Dark Knight were a real
kids
person
incident.
looking at this video game series, I'm sure he'd have solved who did the Bite of 87 within 3 minutes of booting the first game
Probably
up, and would have
Foxy?
Scott Cawthon's IP address within the hour. So instead, we're going to be placing Batman within the fictional story of FNAF. Let's assume he's not in Gotham, he's in Hurricane, Utah. For those who aren't aware, Hurricane, Utah is the setting within the Silver Eyes trilogy, and aside from Westbrook from the Into the Pit game, is the only named town in the series
So
we
we
can
are
really work
actually
with
using
slash
books for
I can
this.
think of, because I'm sure there's plenty in the Fazbear Frights books that I'm forgetting. So Batman is in Hurricane. We're going to assume that for some reason or another he has a functioning Batcave, Batmobile, and Bat Butler to help him. I did consider giving him a Robin or two, but I think that would honestly make things too easy and invalidate the purpose of this thought experiment. We're looking to test Batman, not Batman and whatever orphan of the week he's kidnapped. At the
Fair.
time of this recording as well, Secret of the Mimic has not come out, so
Okay.
we're not placing Batman at the earliest point in the timeline, which would theoretically be our starting point.
Okay.
Actually, depending on where we drop Batman within the timeline, there's going to be wildly different results.
Because
I believe.
different things
we're
were
going
happening.
to run this thought experiment several times to compensate for this
Fun!
fact,
Okay,
throwing him
let's
into
go.
different eras. His ultimate goal is to stop William Afton or whatever AI is mimicking him.
Okay,
Batman's
so we are doing like the full thing. Okay, because in some of the older, in the newer games, the bad guy is more of an AI as opposed to the actual flesh and blood William Afton who got all burned up. And it's like the new one is like Glitch Trap is like the new William Afton because it's based on William Afton though, so it's like basically him. But I still need to know what Batman we're talking about though.
character tends to lean towards investigation before violence, so we're going to be operating under the belief that before he tries to stop what's going down, he's going to want to know every detail available.
So is he gonna be a
let's
night
start
guard
with
one
our
day?
first timeline drop, 1983.
So
1983.
barely
Batman
anything's
is
happened yet.
investigating Hurricane, Utah, following an attack on a young boy, Cornelius Afton. Cornelius's older brother, Mike, had hoisted him into the mouth of Fredbear,
Not sure where
the
they're getting
golden singing
Cornelius from.
animatronic bear. Unexpectedly, Fredbear was hungry and bit down, crushing Cornelius' skull and hospitalizing him. Intrigued by what sort of corporate negligence could have caused such an unusually named boy's head to be caved in, Batman starts by investigating the killer animatronic itself. It's here that he discovers spring-lock technology, and more specifically, discovers how unsafe it is. He finds and very politely questions Henry Emily, the head engineer and co-owner of the diner. But Henry insists that Fredbear's accident wasn't his fault. It was the fault of his partner, William Afton, who had invented spring locks in the first place and regularly taught his employees how to use them. And of course, William was Cornelius's father. Batman had avoided going after him at first, not wanting to believe a father's own negligence resulted in his son's hospitalization.
Really though, where is he getting the name Cornelius? As far as I'm aware, Crying Child has no name.
Regardless, he knew now that he had to confront William. However, William is one smart cookie. When Batman finds him, William says he isn't William. He's going by the name Dave Miller, pretending to simply be an employee of Fredbear's during the closing hours. This is pretty much what he did in the Silver Eyes when the heat came down on him, so I imagine he'd do the same thing here once he found out his business partner had been beaten up by a rogue vigilante. Here's the thing though. Batman has an eye for liars, and even when he doesn't, he has a fist for them. So after some more polite chat, Batman realizes the man he's talking to is in fact William Afton, who is aiming to dodge responsibility for essential infanticide. At this point in the story, Batman could turn William in. He's guilty as sin, but he wants to decommission the springlock suits first. Imagine, if you will, Batman beating the ever-loving fuck out of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie in front of William Afton. So yeah, dropping Batman in this early on before there's much of a mystery, he cleans up pretty nicely.
Except for the fact, like, why would he beat the ever-loving fuck out of them? Because they don't... If the Crying Child isn't even dead yet... I mean, again, no one really knows what the timeline for sure is, but most people agree that the Crying Child... I feel like most of the timelines I've seen have kind of agree that, like, the suits weren't haunted yet when Fredbear bit down on the Crying Child. from what I recollect of most of the timelines I've seen. So like he could tear apart the animatronics, but it wouldn't do anything because they're just animatronics at this point. The crying child isn't even dead yet in this universe. He's just hospitalized.
What you'll find as we continue is that just like in the real world, the more story we add on to this, the more stressful, dangerous, and impossible it is to crack it's gonna be for our Cape Crusader. Also, during these early periods, there's not so much for Batman to really solve. If you were to only use FNAF 4's given lore, the only thing we really need to know is what happened to the crying child. So in this instance, Batman very easily solves a mystery that I think most sane adults could probably solve anyway. So this time, let's drop Batman into the year 1985, the presumed year of the missing children incident. After arriving in Hurricane, probably to fucking buy the entire Fazbear brand, Bruce Wayne is shocked to learn that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is being closed down. A man wearing one of the many mascot costumes within the place had abducted 5 children within the restaurant, who were now presumed dead. Bruce suits up as Batman to investigate these disappearances, and uses his patented Arkham series detective mode to instantly find where William stuffed the bodies. Okay, jokes aside, this brings up our first major decision in Batman's arsenal, because while I definitely just made it sound very humorous, if Batman legitimately had a functioning detective mode with X-ray vision built in, he absolutely would find out where the bodies went nearly immediately after snooping around the place. But we're just going to be going off of a more traditional, well-accepted version of the Dark Knight, and just assume he's an actual detective instead of a CSGO wall hacker. Nevertheless, Bruce is finding out fucking instantly that the 5 dead kids are stuffed inside the animatronics because he has a sense of smell like most people, and unlike many others, a functioning brain that is capable of putting 2 and 2 together. So Batman turns the missing children incident into the confirmed massacred children incident, which means he's pretty much at the same theorist level as an 8-year-old who read the FNAF 1 newspapers. The real problem he has now is finding out who did it. After reviewing camera footage from the restaurant, he deduces that whoever did it wore the Spring Bonnie costume. After some very, very fast logicking it out, he realizes that William Afton is his prime suspect. He finds William but is unable to catch him in the act.
Why does he figure that? I just am like, I mean, because like, you know, William's the one who wore it, but like, did they even find out? I'm trying to remember again from like stuff from FNAF 1, like the missing children's incident. Like, did they actually find out that somebody had dressed in the suit to lure them away? I feel like that was part of the mystery still. Like they didn't know that that's what had happened because the kids just simply disappeared. And because they disappeared, not necessarily because they knew that anybody had kidnapped them or anything, that just the sheer disappearance of them was enough to shut the place down. I don't know.
And as smart, William is also pretty clever in his own right. After all, he was able to put up a front as a kind businessman for years presumably before he killed those children. And so William Afton and Batman begin this dance. William distances himself from the missing children incident, which is much easier due to the restaurant being shut down. At this point, Batman is just waiting for William to slip up. And slip up he does. I'm going to get a little liberal with this timeline of events, so prepare to get
well, the FNAF timeline
William
is kind of liberal
decides
anyway.
to move forward with the next phase of his plan, believing he's evaded Batman. He contacts investors to try and get them to fund the animatronics he's creating for his new location, Circus Baby's Pizza World, a distinct entity created under the sister company to Fazbear, Afton Robotics. And who is one of these investors? Motherfucking Bruce Wayne, of course, who uses the opportunity to get closer to Afton. However, now Batman has the pieces he needs. He delves into William's blueprints and finds out that he's making machines that seem to be made to capture and kill people, including children. So before Circus Baby's Pizza World ever opens up, Batman rocks William's shit and turns him into the police, handing over the blueprints for his murder machines while he's at it. So in this version of the story, Cornelia still died, as did the 5 missing children and presumably Charlotte, albeit I have no idea where Batman would fit into that story anyway. But we did prevent Elizabeth from being killed, the 5 other children, and Michael from getting scooped.
You know, again, it all depends on what you actually think the timeline is, though. That's because, like, this is why this is kind of interesting, though. Because the FNAF timeline is so convoluted. I have seen so many different timelines. Some of them put Elizabeth's deaths first. Some of them put some of the missing kids' deaths first. Some of them put the crying child first. Still no idea where he got the name Cornelius from. And, like, and it's been very, very difficult. Like, I've heard good explanations for like 9 different possible timelines. And now with Secret of the Mimic coming out, and it's put like now the AI technology has been around since the freaking 70s. That changes things again. So I don't know. I just think it's kind of interesting. Some of these things I'm not sure where he's pulling from. But also some of it is like, I haven't read the books and I've only looked at playthroughs of the games and like watched a lot of background commentators.
William was pretty effectively foiled here, so let's now drop Batman in just 2 years later in 1987. This time, Bruce is arriving in Hurricane just as the new Freddy's opens up. At first, everything seems fine, but he's troubled by a set of unsolved disappearances from just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And before that, a boy's death at an older location owned by the company. So he decides to keep an eye on this place in case anything goes wrong. He can appreciate the new animatronics as well, and how they're connected to criminal databases to ensure predators don't show up. Bruce even begins to wonder what a bat animatronic would look like. And for a while, everything seems fine, except he begins to notice that the animatronics are acting strange with adults, and how certain staff members seem to be avoiding them. He considers this suspicious enough to investigate in costume, only to find out the restaurant is going out of business amid a sudden police investigation.
Well, at least he might be fine if he's in costume.
5 children were found in the restaurant, paralleling the last set of disappearances. So Batman tries to make a connection, whose name was attached to both restaurants during those disappearances. Unfortunately, no one. The original restaurant owners, Henry and William, have both disappeared seemingly. So Batman instead turns to the security footage from the previous location and the current Freddy's. In order to find out who did this, he needs to first establish that it's the same person. With Batman being an expert on criminal behavior, I feel like it would be pretty easy for him, especially given they're wearing the same fucking bunny suit. So Batman, facing his new nemesis, presumably Bunny Man, needs to find this guy's identity.
Bunny Man!
Again, quickly coming to the conclusion that it was likely William Afton. However, this is where Batman stumbles into more trouble. William was never officially connected to the new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, meaning he's either looking at a copycat killer or William using an alias. He goes through employee records before settling on the day guard, Dave Miller. Dave mysteriously vanishes most of the way through the week, and Batman decides to follow him closely, hoping that by finding William he can put an end to the madness. But in finding Dave Miller and turning him over to the police, Batman realizes that trouble is really just beginning. On the last day of operation, one of the staff members of the new Freddy's, a man by the name of Jeremy Fitzgerald, is bitten by one of the older animatronics.
Cause like doesn't the day guard disappear because he was William Afton and that's when he got spring locked? So he would have found him in the room, like all spring locked and dead. Or twitching at least.
Foxy. Jeremy is hospitalized, doomed to spend the rest of his days a shell of his former self. But how did this happen?
Sorry, Jeremy.
William was behind bars. Batman decides to observe the animatronics himself before they're packed away or destroyed. And it's here he once again finds the bodies of the initial 5 missing children.
So is this where he figures out about science, ghosts and stuff then? Because it doesn't really matter if William Dave is spring locked or in jail at this point. If the bad stuff is still happening, he could still then be like, okay, there's something more happening here. I still don't think he'd go to ghosts.
With the open case now closed and their animatronic bodies destroyed, Batman finishes this version of the story. This time around, William succeeded in killing 11 children in total, the 2 groups of 5 and Charlotte Emily. Cornelius and Elizabeth are also dead by this point, and Jeremy has his frontal lobe bitten off, bookending this story before Michael ever gets involved. This version of the story also relied much more heavily on Batman using his investigative skills to try and find links between the different murders. I also ended up assuming he'd be able to even track down Dave Miller, so if you think this is where he loses and can't solve the case, let me know down below. Our next jump ahead in time is going to be to the year 2000.
I think that, if Dave Miller disappeared randomly, that would be enough for him to want to look into it further. Just because, he's looking at disappearances and Dave Miller has disappeared, and that's weird because he is he's the first adult to disappear, so I think he would actually look into that. I don't know if he would find the secret back room or not, but probably would, because again, I'm pretty sure that when he disappears, it's because he is, just gotten spring locked after, trying to lure some children. He got, the spirits got him, I think. So but either way, if he disappears, that's enough for Batman to look into him because it's the first adult to disappear. So I think that's fine.
3. This is the year I believe the first FNAF game happens, and it's also the year the movie uses. And for the sake of this video in specific, we'll be operating under the belief that William is spring-locked after the events of this game. So Batman is once again in Hurricane, where a man named Mike Schmidt has just been hired to work at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a magical place where fantasy and fun come to life. The only flaw now is finding out why this year specifically would be the year Batman investigates the place. So I decided that he would be investigating the death of the phone guy, Ralph. Batman finds out about Ralph's death through obituaries in the Hurricane paper, and he's curious
so
how
he
it
shows
happened.
up around
More
day
specifically,
4 then.
where's the body? He finds out Fazbear Entertainment has already hastily obscured that detail from the public eye, but it doesn't take long for him to find the tapes Ralph left behind on the answering machine. Realizing the animatronics are to blame for this, Batman now needs to find out what happened to Ralph, and what made the animatronics do this. He listens back to the tapes and realizes Ralph spelled it out for him. He's been stuffed into an animatronic suit. He hacks into Fazbear Entertainment's corporate computers to get an idea of where they'd be hiding dead bodies, and discovers where Ralph's body ended up. It's already been taken care of. The suit, along with Ralph's body, has been melted down into a substance to be used by one William Afton. Batman doesn't know this part yet. He only knows that Ralph's body has been disposed of via fire and burning. By now, he has enough information to take down the entire company and have everyone at the top arrested. But he also has a night guard to save. Mike's headed back for one final night, his 6th night, and it's up to Batman to stop the animatronics. At this point, Batman had not been up close to them, and so he's surprised at the smell and appearance. However, Batman's not aware of the missing children incident, something the company has spent many years of their history denying, refusing to acknowledge, and covering up.
Yeah,
so when Batman goes toe-to-toe with these robots, he's surprised at their surprisingly supernatural abilities. One by one, he's able to deactivate them and saves Mike, at a cost to Mike getting fired for letting someone in and letting said someone break their robots. However, when this happens, Batman finds the corpses of 4 children, bringing the scandal to light once again. William Afton had been planning to return to Freddy's once the restaurant closed, but now he's forced to operate ahead of schedule. He returns to Freddy's that night and tries to collect the animatronic endoskeletons of the main 4, only to be confronted by Batman. At first, Batman's not sure who he's looking at, but regardless, they need to be interrogated. Frightened, William runs for a hidden safe room, wherein he decides he'd rather go out in his own way than be taken into custody. He wears the Spring Bonnie costume and forces the spring locks to go off, dying.
That was actually really cool.
William's body is brought in for a forensic examination, where they can't seem to separate the flesh from the suit.
Oh, is this like the Dead by Daylight or whatever, where you get to actually be Spring Bonnie or whatever? Or you get to Scorch Trap? What's this one called? Burn Trap. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Since executives and management are arrested for covering up Ralph's death within the restaurant, and William is buried in the Spring Bonnie suit, with a horrified Mike Schmidt in attendance to the funeral, or rather, a horrified Michael Afton. So in this version of the story, Batman discovers everything about Fazbear Entertainment's past with covering things up, and we even threw him bearing witness to William's death. However, all the murders still happen, so for the first time in this video, Batman did not save anyone who would have canonically died otherwise. But hey, little victories, right? But I know what you want to see. You want to see Batman go toe-to-toe with Springtrap himself. So we're making another stop, 30 years after Freddy's closes down in 2033. Yes, for this video, I'm saying FNAF 3 happens in 2033. Is this what I think happens in the actual game's timeline? I don't really know, but I'm rolling with it. This time around, Batman is investigating the fire that burnt down Fazbear's Fright, a horror attraction centered around the rumored history of Fazbear Entertainment and more specifically, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Batman decides to listen through the last place calls to the attraction, while he has Alfred dig up as much as he can about Fazbear Entertainment. He already suspects that maybe someone involved with the company burnt it down in an arson attempt to protect the company's reputation. But while listening back to the calls placed by the phone dude, whose real name is Banjo, Batman focuses on one line. We found one. A real one. Batman decides to find Banjo and ask him about the real one they found. Banjo points Batman in the direction of the Freddy's that closed down in 2003, where they found a bright yellow rabbit costume that had been hidden in a back room. By now, Alfred has the written history of Fazbear Entertainment on file, including information pertaining to the multiple closings the franchise had over the years, related to police investigations and disappearances. But what Batman is especially interested in now is why there was no yellow rabbit animatronic discovered in the aftermath of the fire. Where did it go? Alfred tells him about disappearances pertaining to someone wearing a mascot costume in the 80s, and Batman deduces that this hidden suit is likely the one the killer wore. It was kept hidden to prevent anyone from finding out who wore it, but through all this time, Batman can't find any names. Freddy's had been owned by a board of shareholders since 1987, and the company had a history of keeping their dirty little secrets tucked away. So he turns to one of the few former owners he can track down, one who's still alive, Henry Emily. Batman asks Henry about the murders in the 80s and who he thinks would be motivated to cover everything up with a fire. Henry retaliates by saying that the fire wasn't a cover-up. It was meant to cleanse everything. He's the one who set the fire, and did so to put an end to his old enemy and his old friend, William Afton. You
Yep.
see, Henry suspected his business
Yeah,
partner,
okay.
William, of being the one to have killed so many people in their company's history. But he was never certain. One day, William went missing, hidden behind a false wall where he was left to rot. But when Batman went there was nothing in the safe room. He realizes that this real one, the Yellow Rabbit, and William Afton are all the same being. And now, he's
sure.
out there, free with some damage sustained from the fire. So Batman rationalizes the best thing he can do is to try and track William down, and ventures to his old haunts.
I mean, I guess he could figure out. I don't know. I feel like he's used to costumed psychos, right? Again, we are playing Fast and Loose's timeline. It's fine. The Freddy's timeline's crazy anyway. I'm just a little bit like, sometimes I feel like Batman is making some leaps that maybe he couldn't quite make.
He visits multiple closed down Freddy's locations before realizing he's going about this wrong. He needs to go where the Springlocks grow, Fredbear's family diner. When he gets there, he finally confronts Springtrap, busy repairing himself to the best of his ability using parts from another Spring Bonnie suit, and the two fight.
Interesting.
But Batman is surprised at Afton's
Interesting
strength
thought.
from the suit, in his head likening him to a foe like Solomon Grundy. But with the tools at his disposal, the fight is all
Okay,
but
so he's
won.
got Solomon.
He's able to paralyze Afton with a shock batarang, hindering him enough to be taken into custody. And so, the case is closed. Batman revealed Afton as the murderer he is and found out Henry started the fire that destroyed Fazbear's Fright in an attempt to kill Springtrap. This is something that while Batman does not approve of, he's willing to forgive and let Henry get off. This puts an end to this version of the story. We're actually going to be skipping over Pizza Sim and UCN now. Pizza
Okay,
Sim, I
that's
feel,
fine.
would go down too similarly to the last one, and UCN presumably all happens in William's mind. So what's there to solve, really?
The ultimate custom night is his purgatory. He's dead when that's happening.
So instead we'll be jumping to the modern era of FNAF, from Help Wanted to the latest point in the timeline, Ruin. And unlike other parts of the timeline where Batman could be solving individual
He might
mysteries,
save Cassie
the Steel
here.
Wool era seems to be much more sequential, as in they're focused on making one big story. Sure, Batman could try solving Help Wanted, but he'd need to do that if he wanted to solve Security Breach anyway, and he'd need to do that if he wanted to solve Help Wanted 2. Etc., etc.
Blah,
So
blah, blah.
I'm just going to treat this as one big version of the story, and it's probably what will end up being the most definitive version because it has the entire history of the series behind it. Batman is once again in Hurricane, Utah, this time after the closure of Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex. He's been keeping tabs on Fazbear Entertainment since their sudden resurgence following an unsolved string of murders in the 80s. And
You know what? That is the kind of thing he would be kind of vaguely looking at, I think. I do agree that if there's like a franchise that had like a bunch of murders that like happened where they couldn't prove anything and they never found the bodies, and like he would definitely be kind of keeping an eye on that at the very least, because he does deal with like multi-billionaire mega corporation people who, you know, do experiments on people. So I think he would definitely be keeping an eye on it. So that so far I agree with.
Countless rumors and speculations surrounding the company, but if anything, they made light of it with the release of the Freddy Fazbear Virtual Experience, a video game with nothing wrong in it whatsoever. Want me to blow your mind real quick? We technically still don't know the canonical ending of the Freddy Fazbear Virtual Experience, assuming it has an ending at all. The Pizza Party minigame might be it, but that minigame also ends with us seeing Glitchtrap, a character we know did not come from this game in universe. Technically, we don't know for certain this game ever even shipped out, but for this we'll be operating under the belief that it, as well as the Tales books, are canon events. This release funded the opening of Freddy Fazbear's Mega
Or at least
Pizzaplex,
canon
where things were
projects.
fine for a while. There were stories here and there of things going awry and some case studies that Batman was interested in. One of them even involved a boy who developed a split personality based on the character Monty, who was an animatronic at the Pizzaplex. At the same time, many children would end up being reported missing, including a young boy named Gregory, who will be very important later. But before Batman can formally set out for investigation, the Pizzaplex experiences a quote-unquote earthquake and closes. On top of this, a young girl named Cassie was seen heading into the ruined Pizzaplex, and she did not emerge from it. Now Batman has a missing child to worry about on top of an investigation surrounding this very Pizzaplex. So when he goes in to examine it, he really has the run of the place.
Okay.
He encounters Maskbot, and it being the first functional robot he encounters, he decides to open it up. This, I believe, is where Batman will learn that something has gone wrong with the machinery of the Pizzaplex.
Okay.
However, Maskbot is much too dilapidated and frankly simple for him to find out what it exactly is yet. Eventually, Batman makes his way to the security office behind the backstage area. This spot is usually inaccessible during Ruin, but Batman has a number of gadgets that will help him
Batman's
get basically
special.
anywhere he wants
He's
to.
Batman.
From grappling hooks to a cape that allows him to glide, and if we're going off of the Arkham games, I'm willing to bet that explosive gel would really help. Batman works to restore power to the Pizzaplex's security booth before realizing a lot of his gadgets are experiencing interference. His communication with Alfred is buggy, as if something has taken control of his own gadgets. But Batman isn't a fan of sharing his toys, so he's able to pretty quickly isolate the entity blocking him.
Okay, I would like to know how he's going to do that without the use of his equipment. I feel like he needs Oracle on that for that. You know, like Batman's great, but he's not necessarily a tech wizard. Like, I feel like Tim would have brought the materials he needed with him to do whatever. But I feel like Batman, again, okay, I guess this is a Batman that doesn't rely on anybody else, is what we've decided. Like, we've taken the Bat fam out of the equation. Got to remember that, which means that Batman might have a few extra tricks up his sleeve because he doesn't have Tim or Barbara to solve the tech stuff for him. And I'm not saying that Batman is like bad at tech stuff. Like, he's not. He's quite good at it. He's created a lot of very interesting things. But would he have brought with him those kinds of supplies to here? And I guess I know the whole thing. Batman's always prepared. He's got shark repellent, you know? Would he have the thing? I don't know if he would be able to do the hacking required with faulty equipment, because we've already established the equipment is faulty. So far, I like this theory the best. That's my only question. And again, that's such a nitpick too. So
A rabbit-shaped avatar that he's able to decipher pretty much everything on. He blocks mexes from accessing his gadgets and restores power to the security booth by way of electrically charged batarang and rewiring. From here, Batman finally has a full rundown of the building. He's even able to track Cassie's movements through the cameras. Wanting to rescue her, Batman delves further into the Pizzaplex, where he encounters Glamrock endoskeletons, Ruined Monty, etc., etc., most of which are taken out simply with an electric batarang. By the time Batman makes it to Roxy Raceway following Cassie's trail, communications with Alfred once again cut out completely. Below ground and so close to the Mexus machine, Batman is forced to disable it. Unknowingly, he's done an enemy a great favor. Suddenly, from behind a concrete wall, he starts to hear a familiar voice. Alfred's voice. Alfred proclaimed from the other side of the wall that he had been captured and trapped inside. Batman, confused but cautious, asks who captured Alfred. Alfred clams up for a moment, but then claims that he didn't see his attacker. It could have been anyone. But Batman remains cautious. Something isn't right about this, and he's not about to blindly open up this wall. So he asks a simple question. What is Batman's secret identity? A question Alfred doesn't seem to have an answer to. From the other side of the wall, Batman can hear Alfred's voice distort and the clanking of metal. It's then that Batman notices a ventilation shaft next to the cemented wall.
That's lucky.
It's been filled with garbage, but it's traversable enough for the Dark Knight to get in. He sneaks his way into the room, using the dark to mask himself while he looks for quote-unquote Alfred. However, he comes face to face in the dark with a set of bright, glowing orange eyes. In the ensuing fight in the dark, Batman goes for the electric batarang once again to find it can't maintain a current anymore. Whatever this monster is, it seems to have an EMP-like ability.
Freaking finally the electric batarang gets taken out. I mean, that thing was really pulling triple duty, wasn't it, in this particular one? Electric batarang everything.
Neutralizing electricity around it. This means no electric gadgets for this fight. So Batman turns tail and leaps through a hole in the wall. As this mimicking robot follows him, he only has one option. An elevator at the end of the hall. Lucky for him, he's far enough ahead that he can rewire this thing just before the mimic catches up. As the mimic grabs his shoulder, he turns the situation on its head, and with all the strength he has left, hurls the mimic into the elevator. He tosses a batarang at the nearby battery powering this elevator, shorting it out, and causing it to drop the mimic down into the darkness.
I wouldn't kill it.
Satisfied with his victory, it's only now that Cassie arrives and Batman is able to rescue her from this place. But just because he defeated the mimic doesn't mean Batman's work is done. Cassie
So the mimic is so not dead. I mean, I guess like Secret of the Mimic hadn't come out yet. This guy would have he would have no way of knowing that the mimic can survive being like put through molten lava and shit.
A strange mask, one which he immediately attempts to hack in the Batcave. And when he does, he sees something unusual, a line of code that replicates whatever it comes in contact with, and this code has taken on a shape of its own, or rather, multiple shapes. A stuffed tiger toy, a rabbit mascot, a cartoon bear, even a very important pig. He quickly determines that this code, Mimic 1, has been passed through several machines. The mask has another function as well, implanting a chip in the wearer's brain, perhaps as a form of brainwashing. Cassie is detained by him as he hopes to have the chip inside her neutralized or removed. Meanwhile, Batman is trying to trace this code, Mimic 1, back to its roots. But Cassie doesn't know anything, except that when she was at the Pizzaplex, she saw a video of a woman in a full rabbit costume wearing a similar mask. This only lines up with the graffiti that Batman observed within the Pizzaplex. However, this, I think, is where it begins to run dry for him. He's strained Cassie of all the info she can give him, and he's exhausted his own on-the-job observational skills. So, could he solve FNAF? Yes, because he's not done. He knows before the closure of the Pizzaplex that there was only one human employee left on the company's payroll, which he of course acquired, Vanessa A. He learned everything he could about her, including how multiple therapists she was seeing had turned up dead, mangled by machinery. They even left behind audio recordings, which he listened to and determined what was going on. Vanessa had worn that mask before, and it had seized control of her mind. She didn't know what she was doing or why, but the further Batman looked into her story, the more sense it made. Before she worked for Fazbear, she worked for Silver Parasol, the game studio responsible for the Freddy Fazbear virtual experience. In fact, she worked as a beta tester, replacing a previously fired employee named Jeremy. In fact, this same Jeremy was Cassie's father, who had been missing since he delved into the ruined Pizzaplex himself. It all stems back to that game. So Batman ventures out to Silver Parasol's headquarters, where he once again very politely interrogates the lead developer during the virtual experience's development. He tells Batman that they used spare parts given to them by Fazbear Entertainment in order to develop the game, parts which the company then took back. It's here that Batman really begins to find the depths of this scheme. When he hacks into Fazbear Entertainment's payroll, he once again finds a mysterious lack of human names. There are still some people, but many of them seem to have been fired, or in other cases, such as board members like Murray and Burroughs, completely disappeared. Further, he can't find where those parts Fazent gave Silver Parasol come from. That is, until he examined the files on those missing board members. He finds out Edwin Murray had owned his own robotics company in the 70s, and Fazant knew about one of his creations in specific, the Mimic. Batman solves the case by putting the pieces together. The Mimic itself has manipulated nearly everything. Fazbear Entertainment had obtained the Mimic in the 70s, and while it mostly went unused, they gave parts of it to Silver Parasol, who made the grave mistake of scanning them into the game. The Mimic acquired 2 new vessels at that point, Jeremy and Vanessa. Batman suspected that there were likely more as well, as Cassie mentions a boy named Gregory that he could not find anything on. Using these vessels, the Mimic's code was introduced into the Pizzaplex, where it began taking over more minds, such as the boy with Monty as a split personality. It also infected all the machinery inside the Pizzaplex, warping them and causing them to lash out and occasionally injure or even kill customers. Meanwhile,
so far I like how he's figured out everything but except the supernatural stuff. So like I think that that's kind of cool that in this iteration of this timeline where he comes in at the very end, he doesn't have to figure out the supernatural stuff because it still works. He still figures like everything else out. That's pretty interesting.
The Mimic's main body had been transported beneath the Pizzaplex, where it was trying to get out after being trapped down there. That was why it had called on Cassie, and that was why it tried desperately to get Batman to set it free. And Batman solved it all. The CEO of Fazbear was no longer a human being. The Mimic controlled it all through various proxies, manipulating everything in its favor to try and spread itself like a virus. This would be a long fight. It's not over yet. But for now, this is where our story ends.
Okay.
Just kidding, because there is one resource Bruce hasn't pulled on yet. His wealth. The very next day, Wayne Entertainment makes a public statement initiating their intent to buy out Fazbear Entertainment. With Bruce Wayne, or more likely at this point Lucius Fox, running the ship, the Mimic 1 code's days are numbered. Over a span of months, the Mimic's code is forcefully expelled from every machine, every computer,
until it gets into the Bat computer.
Bruce knows it inside and out by now, and it's met its technological match. And that is how our story really ends. In any case, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. It's really just an excuse for me to talk about Batman since I've recently been replaying the Arkham games and reminding myself why I absolutely love them. And if you enjoyed this video and would like to see me talk about even more bullshit, consider letting me know in the comments down below. I'm DMuted, be sure to subscribe.
Hi DMuted.
And peace.
Thanks DMuted for that. Again, there's some things in there that I'm like, not sure where you pulled that one from. Like the name Cornelius for the kid. Where did he get that from? I'm trying to figure out where he figured out. Again, I feel like That last one makes perfect. Like the last one makes a lot more sense than some of the other ones. Some of the others I was like, um, things that are just maybe a little bit too, maybe he should have just gone into it a little bit more detail. That might have been helpful for me to figure out how he like how he got from point A to point C, because he seems to have skipped point B, or it's like he just now he just decides to go after this person. Now he decides to go. It's like, why did he decide that? That's what I want to know. Why did he decide? Why did that decision come into play? But in the end, I really did like that last one. I think that that's the one he definitely solves. Again, especially because he doesn't have to think about the ghosts, because like in Security Breach, the ghosts are unimportant. Like it's all the mimic. It's no longer as the agony and the remnant and stuff are no longer as important as they were in the first ones, because I just don't think he would solve that part. I really just don't think he could figure that out unless he found his way into like the sister location bunker. If he found his way into the sister location bunker, which had references to agony and remnant and stuff in it, then I think it gets a little bit easier. Also, again, question of which Batman it is, because I don't know if the Arkham Batman, I don't know if there's magic in that universe. I don't know too much about the Arkham Knights games. Unfortunately, I think I wish I did. I wish I knew more about that. But again, we were also looking at a Batman who isn't relying on a vast support network the way that Batman often does. Because like we had Alfred and that was it. But like no references really to Oracle. Like when she would have been very instrumental in helping figure out the tech part of the case, and no references to the Justice League or John Constantine, who would have been able to help with the ghost stuff. So I thought that was interesting. I did find that quite interesting. Don't agree with everything. And again, there's something, where the fuck did he come up with the name Cornelius? Anyway, not sure, but thanks for watching. And like I said, most of my FNAF content knowledge comes from the 10,000 FNAF videos I've watched on YouTube. So let's I guess we'll see. I wanted to watch something spooky for spooky season. I did. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.